All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Joe Russo, and if you're tuning in online, you're watching the South Florida Tech Podcast, a weekly show where we bring you the awesome, innovative people building our South Florida tech community. Each week, we'll introduce you to one of the Sunshine State's top tech leaders, learn more about who they are, what they do, and have some fun conversation along the way. Our podcast is, of course, presented by the Palm Beach Tech Association, a nonprofit dedicated to building South Florida into a tech hub. I'm your host, Joe Russo, the president and CEO, and I want to first give a huge shout out to our sponsor, Emerge Americas. Each year, global enterprise, disruptive technology, and elite startups are highlighted at Emerge's premier tech event connecting the Americas right here in South Florida and Miami Beach. To date, they've had over 40 countries represented with 250 speakers. I mean, they're transforming our community and bringing a lot of highlights to the South Florida tech industry by connecting entrepreneurs, investors, and business executives. They have also just announced a hackathon together with Code Fever and WinCode to tackle some of the issues around racial inequality in our world today. So do check out Emerge Americas. They're a really great part of our tech community and really great to work with those guys over there. Today on our podcast, I am really lucky to have Scott Adams with us today. If anyone has been in the tech community and done some great things that you can make a list, Scott's at the top of it by all means. He's a native of Keystone Heights, Florida, what he calls a speck on the map in northeast of Gainesville with a single traffic light and fewer than 2,000 residents. He played football in college before transferring to FAU and got a bachelor's degree in finance. Since then, he's been a serial entrepreneur who's founded many tech ventures that have focused on distributed systems, emergency response, healthcare, security. And his first response, his first exit was Highway Technologies in 1999, which he sold for $352 million at 35 years old. Wow. I'm 30 years old, so I still got some time to try and work on that. This day and age, Scott is the co-founder and CEO of STRAX Intelligence Group, a company that provides common operating platform designed for real-time response for police forces, government agencies, and emergency response organizations. Scott is also an 8-year member of the FAU Board of Trustees and has endowed the FAU Adams Center for Entrepreneurship in its College of Business. Scott, really excited to have you on the podcast today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Joe, thank you so much for the intro. Let me just get two things straight. I tried to play football in college and realized I better focus on school. So then the second thing is I did serve for 8 years of the Board of Trustees, which it's been a couple of years since I termed off the board. I'm not on the board now, but I did have had the luxury of serving and helping the university kind of grow to where it is today.
Yes, with that, can you give us a little bit of an intro just generally on you? I mean, aside from my introduction, tell us a little about who you are and what you do.
Well, I am a product of the public school system. I went to a public school, Keystone Heights Elementary School and high school. We just had one school in town. And then I transferred down to FAU from Valdosta University in Georgia, and I finished up. So I didn't have the luxury of going to away to college to prestigious big name schools. So I guess who I am, I always say I'm from a small town. Grew up, having to mow the grass, cut down trees, cut firewood for money on the weekend. I've worked at the state park, cleaned the toilets, done roofing, fixed fence lines. So it's I understand what it means to and respect the people out there who are out there working outside every day. And but that's also, I think, what motivated me to work harder. And I view myself as a underdog, not the smartest, but I will guarantee you I'll work harder and than the smarter ones because I have to.
I think that's a football mentality. You're going to work harder than the other guy to win the game.
Yeah. Or girl or
Yeah,
yeah.
very very true. I mean, I meant guy very
Yeah,
generally.
I know, but I just want to be politically correct.
Yeah. So you got started here in South Florida in the most notable way through a company called Highway Technologies, and even though I'm from South Florida originally, I'm a native of Palm Beach Gardens. Highway Technologies was one of those companies that, getting into the work I do now, everybody seems to know that's in the tech industry and has been for a while. So it definitely kind of made a name for itself. But I'm curious if you could tell us a little bit about what the company did, how you got started with it, and how it ended up to being your first big success.
Well, one thing I always say, they're always being an entrepreneur. There's always an element of luck, and my lucky break here was being at the right place at the right time, because we were facing the whole evolution of the internet was just starting, because we started Highway in 1995, and our first business plan, which that we created. And by the way, we were just a company with myself and my co-founder, and we were going to be an ISP, an internet service provider, which really don't even exist anymore, really. But you have a modem bank, and we were working together, just doing consulting work for a few companies, and they wanted a internet a presence. So we helped them do websites. We did 3 websites where we actually designed them. And my partner Bill and I worked together using other ISPs, and we were really disappointed with the speed and performance. So we tried to be a bit of business plan to build our own, the banks of modems in the South Florida area. Well, soon we realized that I couldn't raise the $400,000 that I needed. I went to my dad first, and he said, go to the bank. I went to the bank, and they said, well, we won't give you 400,000, but if you do a personal guarantee, we'll, lend you 10,000 or 5,000. So we said, well, what else can we do? So we decided, since we were doing these websites, we said, well, why don't we just do the websites instead? And so after we started, building the company and did the 3 websites, we realized we don't want to build another website again, because it worked, but it didn't look very good. And we're not artists. We don't know how to make it work, but we did know how to make the platform work. And my partner Bill was a genius. He did all the programming, and I just answered the phone and worked with him on the business side and listened to the market. So then we evolved into doing a hosting provider, where we gave everyone a chance to create their own domain name, so they can be www.yourname.com. And back then that was a big deal. Now it's easy to do, but back then it wasn't. And we automated the whole process of finding a domain name that was available, doing the registration, giving you the email accounts, and giving you tools to go and publish your own website. So that business scaled, and it sort of took off, where we were profitable the first year. And we really didn't raise money till maybe a year or 2 later, when we really needed to expand. And but we grew in a couple of years to be the largest web hosting, a shared web hosting provider in the world, which by the numbers of today would be very small, but in the hundreds of thousands. We had customers all over the world. And then we create a whole channel strategy with Europe and Asia. And then we merged with our second largest competitor from California in the Valley. And then we jointly did work together and did a march to an IPO process back then in 1998. But then we made a strategic decision along the way. We got some unique offers. Once you file your S1 to do your IPO, they saw our numbers. We were numbers looked much better than some of the other technology companies at the time. They were all losing money, and we were in the black, so we were unique. And a company called Vario, which is a roll-up company, very well funded, but they made us an offer we couldn't refuse. So we decided not to do the IPO, and we sold instead. And then subsequently, a year or so later, another global company, NTT America, bought them for a lot more money. So it was that's just a lucky time. You can't do that type of thing. You had to work hard and you had to make it your luck, but you only get a couple windows to do that. And there's only a few companies that get those shots. And then the crash happens. And then it starts all over again. And then what are the next level of companies that are going to emerge from this? And these are some of the ones that we use today. The Facebooks, the AWS, all social, the social media companies were just emerging at the time. And the whole internet became, I guess they called it internet 2.0 after that.
Yeah, I think we're on like 3.0 or 4.0 right now. I can't keep track, but again, that was in 1999, and then the dot-com era, the dot-com bust happened. And, I'm sure, however you want to look at it, there's been some up and downs in these just, micro verticals of the tech industry over the years. But talk about some good timing for sure.
The other thing that was kind of exciting is we were in a mode of hyper growth. We went from 2 employees to over 100 in a year and a half, and and that was a lot to learn for someone like me who had never really done that before. How do you, what does HR mean? Well, I learned really quick and get the right people in to help you with the processes, and then with finance and, learning how to scale and manage the humans. Managing technology is relatively easy, but managing people and technology is, is a real skill set that has to be, that you have to focus on and you have to learn as a young entrepreneur. And sometimes I have people that are my dad's age that are working for me. So I have to, when I'm a 30-something-year-old kid, I got to realize, okay, there's a balance here, but I have to be the boss too.
Yeah, and speak of that, you were a young guy as a tech entrepreneur, almost like a pioneer. In a way, what was that like as the young guy, leading a big company and being successful around a lot of other people who are maybe older than you, maybe have been there for a lot longer, and were either working with you and maybe not working with you in some cases?
Well, it is a little bit of a daunting task when you've, I find myself, and really when I first started, my goal was working with computers, and where I did not want to have to speak to people because, I've always had a stuttering problem. So I thought if I can just be quiet and do my own thing with the computer, it's going to be my perfect job. And then luck has it, I have to be the, the president of a company, and I have to give the speeches in the company meetings and stuff. But and sometimes you just have to realize you have to take a chance and you try to learn really quickly, and you ask other people for advice too. You got to be open to listen and to learn. So, it's just also not being scared to take that risk, that chance. And that's really what I think is so important as entrepreneurs. We have to not be afraid to go into the land of the unknown. And then you figure it out when you get there.
Yeah. I think, from my perspective, leadership is this odd characteristic that, even when you don't know where you're going, you got to know where you're going. And it's sometimes hard. And, from the highway technologies perspective for a second. I feel like you know you had that experience, but do you think that helps you now in the current company you have in STRAX to say,
Well,
well, I've done this before, and that kind of leans back, or is it just all new territory either way?
no, I think there are a lot of things that I learned at Highway that really helped me. Just experience in general. The more times you can do something, because there's never the same playbook the next time. And I think I probably learned more on my failures after that, more than the success. Because that's what I remember the most. When you feel that pain, and I have a great saying. That's complex. Don't make the same mistake twice. You got to
Yeah.
learn quickly, adjust, and change, and make little steps, and steer the ship. I always have some other sayings also, like I live by, is that if it doesn't work in a little way, it's not going to work in a big way. you know and also crawl, walk, run's another one. Start small, get a little bit bigger. A company's like a child. It has to develop. You can't get big too quick. You can't be a 3-year-old running a marathon. Your muscles aren't ready for it yet. Your mind's not ready for it yet. A company is a living being with a
So
culture and people.
tell us a little bit about STRAX and what your current company does, how big you are, what have been some success points, and I guess more or less the elevator speech on it.
Yeah, so just a little bit of the history is, we first started with STRAX when with a vision that had a platform and Internet of Things devices. We were actually started the company doing for bracelets for tracking Alzheimer's and autism, kids with autism, and being able to track them and respond to emergency situations. Well, so we did another flank of another company that was focused on drones, and along at the same time using the same platform strategy to spread out the risk. Well, the tracking company was too much hardware, too hardware independent, and we just didn't have enough capital to really make the product as small and as with the capabilities that we had set out for. It was too much risk, so we ended up going as on the drone side, and we were doing all sorts of things with drones early on. This is 3-4 years ago. Well, since we've morphed out, company was called Eagle Eye Technologies, and now we've changed the name to STRAX. STRAX was the name of our platform, and so we're what we are today, and this is where our what we say our vision is stuck, is we're a real-time response system, and we have a common operating platform that integrates drones, or integrates cameras, feeds from mobile devices, and we're all about helping to expedite and improve the response to different types of situations. And we are in our environment today where we have natural disasters. We have hurricanes. We have tornadoes, floods. We live in a very and these things seem to be happening all the time around the world, but in Florida too. So our system's set up for that. We're also can handle various things like diseases, and like the current epidemic we're in now, of helping to provide some information where large crowds may be, and providing ability to help responders deal with those type of situations. And also the recent the civil unrest, not the protesters, because the protesters have been fine, but we're talking about the protesters who resort to violence, and And that's also an area that we need to help provide information from a distance, so that the uh, public safety can help respond and avoid the accidents from happening. Before a big pileup happens on I-95, they need to know in advance to try to shut some of these roads down if there's a bit large group of people going to certain areas.
Yeah, and I've been really amazed. I think over the years as I've seen, or just a little bit minutely, because a lot of the stuff that you guys have been working with the either the sheriff's department or other agencies, very much behind the background, behind the scenes, but leads so much into those who are around us to help protect us doing their job better, and it's so neat to see. Um, the drones you guys have also developed are pretty awesome. And for those who are listening, STRAX is spelled STRAX. You can find them online, STRAX Intelligence Group or straxintelligence.com, to see all of the just amazing little things that they can do out there in the world. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, but we actually integrate with the drones now. We because there's so many new types of drones, or robots too. Those are going to be different feeds from whether it's flying or on the ground. Being able to go into a area that a human cannot go into, whether it's smoke or some sort of airborne substance or something. They have to be able to send these things in, and being able to link to them is important. And one more thing to add too is that since we are on the cutting edge of technology, as a technology entrepreneur, we got to do it in a responsible way, because there are certain things we could do that the technology is not evolved yet. Where, like, I'll give you an example, facial recognition. It's not good enough really for us to we're going to wait till later, or the public thinks it's ready. But that's just an example. We have to do things responsibly and with transparency and accountability too. And that's a big deal of what sort of events are going on today, right now, with our current situation with public safety, law enforcement, and the public.
So I want to shift a little bit of the conversation here from the companies you worked with a little bit towards the community that you've been working in for over 20 years. So when you left Highway, you had your exit. One of the early things that you did was invest into FAU, your alma mater, and you endowed a fund into their School of Entrepreneurship. But since then, you also have gotten involved with FAU Tech Runway, been on the advisory board for that. You also helped found the Internet Coast, which was an initiative started, I believe, 20 years ago, give or take, to unify the South Florida tech community. You've done so much over your time here to be a part not only of just the successful companies, but also in bringing those people together. And I'm curious what kind of highlights you have, or maybe a story or two that kind of showcase all the, frankly, at least from my perspective, all the good that you've been able to do over the years.
Well, I think the first time when I was able to take a breath and say, okay, I've had a little success here. What can I do? The first thing that came to mind is said, well, it was imperative that I had, some of the knowledge that I gained with an education. So the first check I could write was back to FAU to endow the Adams Center for Entrepreneurship, because I want it focused on the educational side. I did not want a building with my name on it. I don't care about that. I want a program that's going to continue when I'm gone one day, and I want to give other future entrepreneurs a chance to get them so they can achieve that education and get that little bit of a head start that they may need. So if they get their lucky break and get their chance and they take the chances, they have the same opportunity that I did. And so I feel very fortunate to live in a country where we do have the opportunities that we do. It's not easy by any means, and it's not getting any easier. It's getting probably harder and harder. But as long as someone has that gleam in their eye and see that hope and opportunity, and it's given to everyone equally, that is very important. My mother's an immigrant too from the United States, so I'm not a blue blood by any means. So that also brings me to a grounded situation where, or at least brings me from where I feel like I've been raised from the ground up. Makes me hungry too, and appreciate what I have. The second thing that I really got involved in was the surrounding education. Is I gave a pretty large donation to the George Snow Scholarship Fund, of helping give high school kids who who had a real financial need, to give them a little extra scholarship and some guidance along the way of helping them find the right schools to go to. So that was very rewarding, to give actually personally meet some of the kids and give them the scholarships at a ceremony, and meet their mom and dads and see the gleam in their eye, and see, and these are the underdog kids too, just like me. So I felt good about that.
So I know a lot of what we've talked about is, of course, the tech industry, tech companies working together. But it sounds like the thing that really kind of inspires you is, providing a foot forward for that next generation. And I'm curious, like, how do you look at that? How do you look at supporting that next generation? Is it through education, through entrepreneurship? And what words of advice do you have to those who might be listening to this to say, well, what can I do?
Well, yeah, and I think we're going to have to go beyond just education is still key. But I think we're at a very pivotal stage right now in our country where we're going, and I don't have the answer yet, but I think we're going to have to work hard of coming up and getting some dialogues going to address some of the issues that our young people today are very upset about. So and we have to take some baby steps forward and find a path to start to see some good results. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens, and I think it's going to take some of really a combination of a lot of people from all different ages and genders and race coming together and working together with a unified plan and leading by example. So there's a real opportunity for the community to step up.
So let me ask you. We only have a few minutes more, but curious what you, out of the office. It's Saturday. It's the weekend. You had a good week. You're pushing everything work-wise out of your mind. What are you taking your time with to decompress on the weekend? Hobby, trip, travel?
Well, I used to travel a lot more than I have lately. So I love the reason, one of the reasons why I choose to live down here in Southeast Florida is I love the ocean. I always have. I love to go out on the boat. I love to fish. I love to go swimming in the salt water. And I like to do more of that too. The other thing is I like being in the woods, back to my roots where I grew up. I grew up in a real rural area. So I like to go up to the mountains as much as I can, but I haven't been able to do that as much either. But just to relax, usually to read and to think. And also what's been a real savior for me for dealing with stress is exercise. I try to exercise maybe 6 days a week, doing something, and I like to mix it up. Running, biking, swimming, weights. But exercise seems to really give me a natural high, more than any amount of beers can do, and it makes you feel better the next day too.
Yeah, for sure. With that last question, what is one call to action that you have for South Florida tech community?
You know, I think it's you know, we all should be be conscious to when we can and at the right time, we all should be to try to give back. And I'm not just because I did it once early on. I want to do more of it later too. Once I have the opportunity to wind down again. So I think when we all find the right times when our hearts and souls tell us to, we need to go and give back to others, and help them. And I think that would be my call to action. Don't forget where you came from.
Yeah. So with that, I want to thank you just generally for everything that you've done to give back. You know, even just talking to me, and sharing some thoughts with me has been just immensely helpful in the work that I do. And obviously have been giving back into your entire time here in South Florida. So I wanted to thank you and just do my bit to share my appreciation for that. Thank you, of course, to STRAX. It's a member of Palm Beach Tech. And if anybody's wanting to get involved and become a member as well, you can go to palmbeachtech.org and click on the membership. And then if you want to get involved, click get involved. And, you can be a part of our tech community and be a part of leading our tech industry forward here in South Florida. I also wanted to thank our producing partners, also from Boca Raton, Alan Schimmel, Brian from DevOps.com. They are a global media leader for technical communities with DevOps.com, Security Boulevard, Container Journal, and several others. So thank you to them and their team there. And of course, thanks once again to Scott for joining us today and for the conversation.
And Joe, thank you very much for all of the what you do for our region in South Florida.
Just doing my little bit, following some good leads out there.
All right, thank you.
You have a good rest of your day, and thank you for all for watching. Have a good one.